leader, a worship associate today. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. Our chalice will be lit this morning by my mother, Pamela Flynn. If you have a candle at home, you may wish to light it with us now. Our chalice lighting words are written by Steve Stock, a UU minister. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion, to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves through the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. Again, welcome to all who have joined us at UUFLB for worship this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever has brought you to join us in worship today, it is the right reason to be here. Our fellowship is served by our minister, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, who provides both leadership and support for our faith community at UUFLB, leading our service once a month and joining us in other events of each week. I'll invite Don West Jr. to announce the Wednesday film series.
Hello, everybody. For the past 6 weeks, this will be week number 7, we've had a Wednesday night film feature, and the focus of the films have been a race-based social justice feature. And this week I made an adjustment to our syllabus. We were going to watch a conversation with Angela Davis and Jane Elliott, but in honor of C.T. Vivian, Reverend C.T. Vivian, and Representative John Lewis, I found 2 features that briefly expose their legacies and their lives. And that's what we're going to do this Wednesday. So hopefully everyone will take the time to join us. It's week number 7. We have 2 other congregations right now who have been joining us. And I challenge the UUFLB, because right now, numerically, we're outnumbered, but we are small and mighty. But come on out with us on Wednesday and represent, and let them know that we have some people here at the UUFLB Fellowship. Thank you very much, Dara.
You're welcome. The title of the service for today is Wounded Healer, Clara Barton. When I first heard this service title, I thought of a presentation I did in middle school about medicine during the American Civil War. During this time, there was very little way to avoid getting an infection, and people died of what we would call now a little bump or bruise. Surgery was usually deadly, and pain was only remedied during procedures by early anesthetics or a piece of leather put in the patient's mouth for them to bite down on until the pain put them out. Clara Barton began the American Red Cross in 1881. What do you think she would think of all the advances that we have today? She died in 1912. Many of the things we rely on when we or a loved one gets sick were not known at the time or in very early use, and not how we use them today. I also wonder how she would react to our country, how our country is handling the present medical crisis. I think that the service today relates to our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This is because Clara Barton started the American Red Cross so that everyone, no matter their gender, color, or class, she saw that every single person deserved the best medical care. Now I invite you all to enjoy our opening hymn with music provided by our amazing music director, Carol Cole. Number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Good morning.
Please join me in reading our centering thought. I have an almost complete disregard of precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for anything new that might improve the past. Now as we gather today from our homes for worship, let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. Please join in reading these words together, when and if it feels right for you. Dale has allowed you to unmute your microphones, joining our voices together. Allows us our commitment as a community, even though we may not be as coordinated as we usually are when we can be together at UUFLB. The words of the unison affirmation will be on your screen. May we be
reminded here
of our
of our highest aspirations
and inspired
to bring our gift
our
of
gifts
love
of love and service
to the altar of
to the
humanity.
altar of humanity.
May we
May
know
we know once again
that we are
we
not
are not isolated beings,
but connected
in mystery
and
miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Good morning. It's always delightful on a Sunday morning to see you all. I get to see you in a different way than I would if I was in the pulpit. I terribly miss you, being able to hold your hands and give you a hug and receive one in return. But it's terrific to see your faces looking back at me on a Sunday morning as I sit in my living room and you sit in your various places, hopefully comfortable and happy to be together. I want to thank the Floodman-Skarecki family this morning. This is our first time to have Dara as our worship associate, and she's awesome. And her brother, Dale, is our tech, who we haven't seen, but he's silently there, making sure we do everything the way we're supposed to do. And Pam is sitting there with her family, and she has put the PowerPoint together, as she often does when I'm preaching. So I just want to thank them, and it's just marvelous. I think John referred to them once as the first family of UUFLB, and I would agree with that. The call to worship this morning is from All Souls, Unitarian Universalist in Washington, D.C. I know there's something better down the road. We need to find a place where we're safe. We walk into that which we yet cannot see. Say it plain, that many have died for this day. Sing the names of the dead who brought us here, who laid the train tracks and raised the bridges, picked the cotton and the lettuce, built brick by brick the glittering edifices they would then keep clean and work inside of. Praise song for struggle. Praise song for the day. Praise song for every hand-lettered sign, the figuring it out at kitchen tables. Some live by love thy neighbor as thyself. Others first do no harm and take no more than you need. What if the mightiest word is love? Love beyond marital, filial, national. Love that casts a widening pool of light. Love with no need to preempt grievance in today's sharp sparkle. Anything can be made, any sentence can be begun. On the brink, we are on the brink, on the brim, on the cusp. Praise song for walking forward in that light. Welcome and welcome home. Every Sunday in our worship service, we have an opportunity to share our personal joys and sorrows.
A blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing and self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is a responsibility to do both well. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contributions from our members, and we are empowered by the innumerable gifts of those who join in covenant with us. All of our gifts, generously given, are needed for this fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. The information on your screen provides 2 ways in which you can give, either electronically on the left or by sending a check to the fellowship. This information is also available in the email message which you received with the link to join this service this morning.
Please join me now in a spirit of prayer, meditation, or reflection, each according to our own practices. You can get comfortable in your chair, your patio chair, your living room chair, and listen. A prayer for the listeners. A prayer for the listeners when my ears are full of the worries, the concerns, the pains of others. Grant me permission for silence. When my arms and shoulders and back ache from the burdens of others, grant me the permission to set them down, to guide me to another. A friend, perhaps, to talk with, not for once to be talked at. And may I not be a burden to them as I pour out my pain, my weariness, my exhaustion, but a space of mutual care. My listener friend, may you always know, no matter how tired I am, you can turn to me too. Let's spend a few moments in quiet rest and contemplation. And know I am here. We'll have the opportunity now to hear Carol play and sing the hymn, When I Am Frightened. If you happen to have a hymnal in your home, it's 1012. Let's listen and enjoy Carol's beautiful music.
When I am frightened, you reassure me. When I am certain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share a song? When I am troubled, you listen to me. When I am lonely, you be my friend. Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
The Civil War happened in our country over 100 years ago, April 12th, 1861 to April 9th, 1865. And yet still, unfortunately, it's with us today in many ways. When I began to think of a famous Unitarian or Universalist whose life might connect in some ways to our life today, I thought of Clara Barton immediately. She is known to us as the angel of the battlefield for her work in the Civil War. Later, this Universalist woman became the founder of the American Red Cross. So how are these all connected? Today, a pandemic is occurring worldwide. The lack of leadership in our country's highest places in addressing the coronavirus has caused the unnecessary and yet untold numbers of deaths growing in the thousands daily. This is accompanied by an economic crisis of epic proportions with devastating effects. The pain of 400 years of overt racism in this country is still with us, America's original sin. It has already created chasmic divisions in all areas of our lives, including economic prosperity and philosophic divisions, which were already challenging our country's viability. But they are now being stoked by a leader seemingly bent on tearing our country apart. Remarkably, however, far more than ever before, masses of people all over the world, not just in this country, of various faiths, ethnicities, religions, have responded to the message of Black Lives Matter. This movement, mostly, formerly, were Black Americans. It has now become a cry of a generation and generations as people see racism as foundational to our problems. Why now? One of the answers may be, aside from our seeing horrific images on television and computer screens daily, and reading the articles and first-person accounts on social media, people are feeling keenly vulnerable now to our shared realities. Huge numbers of people are out of work and unsure of their future employment. Many people are hungry, very hungry, or at least concerned about food insecurity or obtaining essential goods. Not being able to attend sports events, movies, theater, or even going shopping or out to eat have created a very wide space for people, heretofore not paying attention to the effects of privilege. This combination of enhanced, interconnected vulnerabilities, restlessness and fear of the unknown, and unmet passions has created in thousands a need to protest and a desire for redress. We are, of course, seeing what has always been present, but now by massive numbers of people, a desire for healing, by numbers of us who are feeling a collected woundedness. An example on an individual level of a wounded healer is Clara Barton. Clara Barton was a Universalist, but we need to keep in mind that context in which she was a Universalist, because she probably wouldn't believe it if she had come into a Unitarian Universalist congregation today. Then in the 1800s, Universalists were all rather strict Christians. She remarked that her church was austere, with tall box pews and high narrow seats, where the faith was hammered out in an incongruous winter atmosphere. However, the Universalist Christians believed that God would never damn any soul to eternity. This was a major tenet of their faith, and one which set them apart from other Christians of the day. And this certainly influenced Clara Barton's life and her work for her entire life. She is described as a timid and sensitive child. She was small and she had a lisp, and she was often teased by the members of her family. The Barton home was a stressful place for her. Her mother was emotionally unbalanced, and at times, her mother had fits of rage. Clara had an older sister who was a substitute mother to her. But when she was 6, her sister had a mental breakdown and was locked up in an upstairs bedroom. Another sister then looked after her. Early on, Clara had to make the best of a very difficult family situation, but this would serve her well as an adult. She was a bright child who learned to read and do math early, taught by her older brothers and sisters. One brother taught her how to ride horses bareback when she was only 5. But her childhood was brief, when the same brother fell at a construction site. He became an invalid, and Clara nursed him day and night for 2 years. Her childhood experiences brought on early anxiety and depression, which she dealt with by keeping busy, and her self-esteem was buoyed by needing to be needed. A phrenologist visited her family home, and by measuring her head, considered a pseudoscience, of course, today, advised her parents that she should teach school in her teens to overcome her shyness. Terrified of teaching at first, she then recognized she had the mental and physical talents that were needed. As an adult, Clara spent several years as a teacher and as a government clerk in Washington, D.C. She was the first woman clerk in the patent office for a salary equal to men's. But here she was accused of sexual misconduct, and she was harassed. Her workload overwhelmed her, and she became ill with malaria. Then, during the Civil War, she volunteered as a nurse. She was known to be fearless, as even during battles, she carried food and bandages to the wounded soldiers. When the war concluded, she organized a Bureau of Records for accounting for soldiers who were listed as missing in action. She succeeded in having the graves of more than 12,000 soldiers identified and marked for their families and posterity. Clara worked to support women's suffrage, but it was never her main priority. She advocated for the passage of the 15th Amendment, which gave the right to vote to Negro men, but not to women. When Clara was vacationing in Europe, when the Franco-Prussian War broke out, she learned of the International Red Cross, and she offered her services to that organization, setting up aid centers in several war-torn cities. For this, she was awarded the Iron Cross and urged to found the American Red Cross. Upon returning to America, she urged the government signature of the Geneva Convention, thus far ignored by the United States, and she established the American Red Cross in 1821. Over the next 2 decades, She made the presence of the Red Cross in emergencies such as hurricanes, outbreaks of typhoid fever, providing nurses basic supplies and aid to help victims. However, as often as her good works were praised, unfortunately, Clara was not very good at keeping records, and she was accused again, this time of pocketing money. She was hailed and decorated as a heroine abroad, but often maligned and misunderstood in America. In a biography by Joan Goodwin, Clara Barton was described as having, late in life, a keen interest in spiritualism and Christian Science, but she never joined a Christian Science church. She claimed she was not what the world needed of a denominated churchwoman. In 1905, she affirmed her Universalist faith in a letter to an Ohio Inquirer. "Your belief," she said, "that I am a Universalist is as correct as your belief in being one yourself, a belief in which all who are privileged to possess it rejoice." The idea of a wounded healer comes to us from a Dutch priest, Henry Nouwen, who taught at Yale and Harvard Divinity Schools. He spent the last decade of his life working at L'Arche Daybreak in Toronto, Canada, which is an intentional community, still today, all over the United States and Canada, where disabled persons and their assistants live together. Nouwen said, making one's own wounds a source of healing does not call for a sharing of superficial personal pains, but for a constant willingness to see one's own pain and suffering as rising from the depths of the human condition, which all people share. It is a healing because it takes away the false illusions that wholeness can be given by one to another. It is healing because it does not take away the loneliness and the pain of another, but invites the other to recognize this loneliness and this pain on a level where it can be shared. It is said that Henry Nouwen's concept of the wounded healer has shaped contemporary spirituality and churches such as ours. Nouwen wrote, "People today are like the Semitic nomads. We live in a desert with many lonely travelers who are looking for a moment of peace, for a fresh drink, and a sign of encouragement so they can continue their mysterious search for freedom." The famous psychologist Carl Jung suggested that a reason people go into counseling and therapeutic professions is to try to heal themselves of their own wounds. These people he called the wounded healers. One study shows that almost 3/4 of counselors or therapists have experienced psychological wounding experiences in their own lives, and that led them into their profession. I know this personally from ministry. The very best ministers are those who have been wounded, and sometimes tragically, in their lives, and have learned how to go deep into their own feelings and to see those feelings in others. So today, people all over the world are seeing with fresh eyes that which has been the experience of other people's realities their whole lives. This pandemic has provided space and time for us to question why. And what did we not know about so much that we are learning and experiencing? And we're eager to know more, and we're eager to do more to change the situation. We in our Unitarian Universalist congregations have come, many of us with wounds, from the faiths of our childhood or our adulthoods, from our experiences in the larger culture, from our families, of being misunderstood, looking for a place to belong, for a place of spiritual healing. We come also with a desire to heal others, not only ourselves and our local communities, but the world. This is evident in every one of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. Pick your favorite principle. from the desire to covenant, to affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to our respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We are the religion of we, not of me. May we be grateful for the opportunities to be healed here at UUFLB, not only for the love and acceptance we found in our spiritual home, but for the opportunities we can create and to respond to make the world a better place for ourselves, for one, and for all. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. If you have lighted a chalice at home, please now join us with Pam in extinguishing our chalice or our candle. Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we truly are, let us take one more step together in our ending quest for dignity, for justice, and for love. Amen. And now Carol will play and we can sing in our homes our weekly beautiful song, meaningful to so many of us, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song and vow. To take each moment, live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me.
Thank you for joining us for the service this morning. We will now be moving to our virtual cafe. You will now be able to unmute your microphone. We hope that you are able to stay and join in conversation.